Hello, hello. Starting a bit late. Drinking the wrong things for this kind of stream. But this should be the last time we see this title screen. End of chapter 11, yes. We only have chapter 12 now. The body wasn't there. Oh, I forgot to move the thingy back over. Thingy moved back over. The police didn't arrest me because of that. But I didn't know whether to feel happy about it. Just like Satoko had said, I had failed to kill her uncle. The body wasn't there, so I was forced to conclude as much, no matter what strange natural disaster, coincidence, or miracle it might have implied. In order to free Satoko, I became a demon. And this abnormal world was my reward. Yes, metaphorically, I had fallen into the demon world. But if that price had been in exchange for the life of Satoko's uncle, then that would have been fine. Since Satoko's uncle was still alive, still shackling her to him, I needed to become a demon once again. One more time. No, as many times as it took. I would kill that man over and over again until Satoko was liberated. I had already awoken. I looked at the clock to see that it was early in the morning, at just about 5. It was already light outside. Once I had hardened my resolve to become a demon again, I could feel my whole body teeming with the awakened power once more. Time wasn't an issue. No matter what, I'd do it. I got myself up. The exhaustion from the past 2 days was completely swept away, and I didn't even feel sleepy anymore either. I slowly rose and made sure my body was moving like I wanted it to. I could feel blood flowing through each and every one of my fingers. As I got dressed, I let my mind wander, and had a strange thought. These 2 days, while I've said it was for Satoko's sake, the only thing on my mind has been killing. I've said it was for Satoko, but while actually carrying out the act, I had completely forgotten about Satoko, albeit only temporarily. Maybe, initially, it was for Satoko's sake. But now, I was just a demon, killing for the sake of killing. And as a result, I had sunk into a world fit for such a demon. Maybe it was the same for Satoshi. He resolved himself to kill his aunt to save Satoko, became a demon, then disappeared from the sunlit Hinamizawa, vanishing into the demon world. Which meant that, after all was said and done, I'd met the same fate as him. I'd tried to avoid making the same mistakes, but it happened anyway. Which meant that maybe Satoshi was here. Satoshi had come to this world a year before me. So he would be here somewhere. Then, surprised, I stopped walking. There was the second set of footsteps I'd grown so used to hearing. Could you be Satoshi? The empty, lifeless air wouldn't give me an answer. But I felt a strange kind of relief that there was someone there, that Satoshi had stuck with me the whole time. Let's go, Satoshi. Once more. This time, we will set Satoko free for sure. I quietly slipped out of the house so my parents wouldn't notice. If they caught me now when I'd been out way too late for 2 days now, they'd give me a really angry talking to. I didn't have the time to allow for that to happen. Today, I would put an end to it. If the dead body disappeared, then I didn't have to bury it. I could just burn it to ashes and then take them with me so I could kill him again every time he resurrected. I'd do it again. I'd kill him again. And this time, I'd set her free. Outside, the morning light was so beautiful as to stagger belief. I went to the storage room to find weapons with which I could kill him for sure. Blunt or not, it didn't matter to me. Right now, I didn't need to care whether someone saw or if the police came. This world had gone crazy after all. A world where I'd shown up at the festival and had fun, even though I wasn't there. Even if the police arrested me, I'd probably end up going right back home as if nothing had happened. Both me and that other Keiji Maibara. Even without me, he'd fill in. I could vanish from Hinamizo without anyone noticing. So basically, I didn't care if I was mistakenly killed. Even if I died, Keiichi Maibara would remain. After all, this isn't the world I belong in. If I was going to be killed mistakenly for Satoko's sake, then that was just part of my duty as her Nini. As those desperate thoughts became serious, the morning air felt more refreshing to me, strangely enough. Oh, this one's scary. Let's go with this. It was a hatchet meant for chopping thick firewood. Its hefty steel blade was sinister, almost as though it was a tool meant for killing people. I couldn't exactly take it out in public like that, so I wrapped it a little in some old newspaper and tossed it into the basket on my bike. Sorry for using you for evil all the time. I'll need you again today, my legs. I apologized to my bike for some reason. For the past 3 days, I've only used it for dangerous things. I'd been riding this bike ever since I lived in my old town. I could walk most places I wanted to go, so I hadn't used it all that much. My mom had bought it for me when I entered cram school, thinking it would be a convenient way to get to the station, since it was so far away. So I'd always used it to get back and forth from cram school. I'd only put textbooks and class materials in the front basket, too. I'd never tried to put a hatchet that I'd be using to kill someone in here. When I came to Hinamizawa, life finally felt fun. I met the best friends ever and had some of the greatest times ever. Those times might have been shattered now, but it was my greatest wish that I could get them, even if I had to risk my life to do it. That's how fun these times had been. I killed someone. And now I was at it again, needing to kill someone. Murder was a crime. I didn't believe that people should ever think murder was okay. But still, the times I'd had were enjoyable enough for me to commit such a crime. My friends were irreplaceable, and the time spent with them a treasure. Hanging out, laughing, sometimes tricking each other, but always in a friendly way. I didn't fear committing any crime, as long as it was for the sake of taking back those times that gave my heart so much pleasure. Yes, this was a value I decided to uphold. It wasn't something I learned from a school teacher. It was a noble path that I chose for myself. I thought back to when I had first come to Hinamizawa. About how, on the very first day, Satoko had welcomed me via a blackboard eraser with a rock in it. That welcome really surprised the heck out of me. She would laugh, get angry, cry. She was never boring. She was obviously the most childlike one among us, but she was actually lively, full of vim and vigor, and good at meddling in other people's business. That went for Mion, Rena, and Rika-chan too. Wasn't Satoko the one at the center of everyone's laughing and banter? Satoko would try to look cool. Then Mion would make fun of her endlessly. Then Satoko would cry, which would put Rena in a state of ecstasy. Rika-chan would be greatly delighted. And I happened to get mixed up in it. We would always fool around like that. It was lonely when someone wasn't around, but if I had to name one for whom it was the worst, it would have been Satoko. Her smile was everyone's smile. Ever since she stopped smiling, so did the rest of us. And for the rest of us, not smiling was the same as dying. It was just like when I was silently going to cram school every day, just to maintain my unchanging test scores. So, basically, we were nothing when she wasn't smiling. She was full of hot air, but she was our princess, cute and unhateable. In that case, I was her knight, searching for the dragon's castle in order to win her smile back. Knights, of course, use swords. The awesome two-handed kind. I'm probably the only knight in the history of the world to be taking someone on with a thick, rusty hatchet. Then I saw an old woman in the ridge of a field waving to me. Oh my, Keiichi-kun. Out for a morning ride, I see. Good morning. I reflexively waved back in a refreshing way. Should I really have been feeling so happy, waving like that? Satoko's house would be right past this road, going beyond the rice paddies. The cicadas had woken up too, And the next thing I knew, I was the audience to their daily course. I gave myself a hit or two in the head and drove away my merry morning mood. I took a deep breath, then tilted my head back, quelling my pointless excitement. The body wasn't there. Its absence either meant my killing him had been an illusion, or that I had killed him and he'd risen from the dead. If I was at the festival, then maybe I should have considered it an illusion. Coach probably thought that way, which is why he treated me like a lunatic. But it being an illusion was just impossible. I killed him without a doubt. Without a doubt. If that had been an illusion, then that would make all this Hinamizo I was in right now an illusion. If that was the case, then here's how it would end up. I was actually in a vegetative state due to a traffic accident. I was currently dreaming in a hospital bed about how great it would be to spend time with friends and rice patties like these. Turns out this entire game was just a dream. That was a terrifying thought, though. If this wasn't an illusion, then the only possible answer was that he'd resurrected. It would make him a literal monster. But if he was such a monster, then I was no less than a monster myself. I didn't hesitate to kill someone, and I could even manipulate curses. Takako-san had died probably because I'd cursed her. Or maybe that was a little much. If Coach and Oishi died too, like I'd cursed them to yesterday, then I'd believe it. I set my bicycle aside and went to take a look. His motorbike wasn't here. Of course it wasn't. I sent it down to hell that night, throwing it into the Onigofuchi swamp. Or maybe, just like how the corpse wasn't here, maybe the motorbike didn't get thrown into the swamp either? The fact his bike wasn't here might have been because he had gone to town and hadn't come back, not necessarily because I'd thrown it into the swamp. If her uncle wasn't around, then that was convenient on its own. Then I would just show myself in, then wait for him to return, sharpening my hatchet. If he was there. Forgotten sensations came back to my gut. A feeling of tension rose within me. The sensation was like poison, dulling my actions, but it could also be the trigger to allow me to awaken to my superhuman, otherworldly self. I held the hatchet, still wrapped in newspaper. Its weight in my hands was profound, sinister, and reliable. I didn't know what time it was without a clock, but it was probably still a little before 7. Satoko would probably be awake, preparing breakfast and our lunch. But our uncle would probably still be wallowing in indolence. A guy like him probably would have stayed up late drinking, and probably always slept until noon. I considered ringing the doorbell and having Satoko open the door for me, but if our uncle woke up at the sound, I'd waste my chance of him still being asleep. If Satoko saw me sneaking inside without ringing the doorbell, she'd be surprised. If I ran into her, what would I say? I've come to kill your uncle for you, so stay quiet. No, I couldn't do that. Well, I have a few thoughts for this chapter. One big one. That would be like making Satoko responsible for his death. Be quiet and go away outside. Maybe that would do it. How would Satoko react to that? She would probably try and get me to give up on killing him. I would have to lie to somehow get her to go outside. Satoko didn't need to know that a murder was going to occur inside this house. I couldn't quite think of a good lie to tell her, but I couldn't do much just standing around like this. I made up my mind and grabbed the doorknob. Then slowly turned it and pulled. It wasn't locked. The gap between the door and the wall steadily grew larger. The chain wasn't even on. The oppressive smell of life in Satoko's house hit me. At the entrance, there were a few pairs of shoes and sandals. I couldn't tell whether he was here or not just by looking at them. I could hear a television on somewhere. The television was in the messy dining room. There was food scattered about the table, giving an impression decidedly different from a happy family's mealtime. Meals were for eating food while thanking the person for making it, meaning whatever occurred in this dining room wasn't a meal. Nobody in sight. No sign of anyone either. But with the television on, he must have been close. Could he have anticipated my coming and be hiding, waiting for me? The tension I felt was so thick, so tight that I thought it would choke me. The newspaper wrapping the hatchet's thick blade didn't hamper its power at all. I tightened my grip on it, then, very carefully, took a look around. Where had those peaceful feelings from before I arrived here gone? Even the sound of sweat bubbling up on my brow got on my nerves. And then I looked at the table and realized something. This wasn't breakfast. The grains of boiled rice were all hard and dried up. Then, was it last night's dinner? I left the dining room, keeping vigilant, went down the hallway, and found the stairs to the second floor. When that man was playing with his friends, he looked out of the second-story window. It was highly possible that room was his own, and that he slept there. I tiptoed up the edges of the stairs, quietly climbing, without making a sound. I couldn't hear any kind of snore. I didn't hear anything up there. I went through a few rooms, slowly and quietly opening paper doors, checking inside. But I still couldn't find anyone around. To search more efficiently, I got down on the floor and pressed my ear right up to it. I could hear the television in the dining room, and a low hum, perhaps of boiling water. It was then that I started to harbor some feelings of suspicion. This house wasn't right. It seemed like people had been here since the TV was on, but it wasn't normal for nobody to be around this early in the morning. I silently descended the stairs and went back into the dining room. I looked at the food scattered about. Completely dried up rice, an overturned bowl of miso soup, the package for a side dish bought at the supermarket. I could tell Satoko had definitely been the one who made this. The food was far from Mion's perfection or Rena's gentleness, but it was sincere. Judging by how she cooked for me at my house, and from the type and amount of side dishes, I deduced the meal was from last night. The numbers stamped into the food package read 83-6-20. June 20th, 1983. That was yesterday. And there was food for two, which meant that this was last night's dinner, and Satoko's uncle would have been here then. Stop it, Keiichi. Don't even think about saying the word impossible again. Anyway, her uncle was here last night. That much was the truth. He had found fault with Satoko's food, thrown the bowl of miso soup, and flung the rest everywhere. Hidden deep within my feelings of calm and composure was lit a flame of anger and a curse. Should I have ever shown this man any mercy? Bump. I heard the sound again, the one from before, like a water boiler. What was it coming from? The first floor? But where? The bathroom, maybe? I could hear the noise coming from the other side of the frosted glass at the far end of the changing room. It had to have been the sound of the water boiler for the bath. Steam was shrouding the glass door, and the heat from it was leaking into the changing room where I was standing, too. My misgivings deepened. People didn't normally take a bath this early in the morning. If one did, then it would mean that in this house, time had been stopped ever since some moment last night. Whistle, whistle, whistle. Was it being reheated? The water boiler in the bathroom had been active this whole time. I checked in a clothing basket and saw Satoko's familiar uniform stuffed in it. The uniform had stains and dried rice stuck to it, certainly not something she could wear today. It was probably from the miso soup at the dinner table yesterday. I looked hard at the frosted glass, but I couldn't see anything through all the steam. And then an electrical surge ran through my mind, and a terrible premonition came over me. Could she? She couldn't possibly have been in there since last night. That would be impossible. But no, in Hinamizawa right now, nothing was impossible. I gulped audibly, then quietly pulled aside the glass door. Need to drink a bunch more water. Hot steaming air burst out of the slight opening. The fan wasn't on in the changing room, so it went completely white with the steam. Just as the hot vapor poured into the changing room, cooler air also flowed into the room with the bath. And I just heard, due to being hit by that air, a very weak moan. That was all I needed to know who it was. Satoko! No answer. Satoko was in the bathtub, surrounded by a thick layer of rising steam. The top half of her body was leaning over the edge of the tub, and she was passed out. The water boiler kept on making a whistling noise, as if angered. I could see the gas flame through a small window. It was roaring at full force, completely blue. Satoko's entire body was boiled red and flaccid, as though her bones had melted away. She was almost like a doll as she lay there unconscious. I wasn't sure how many seconds passed as I stared in complete bafflement. I came back to my senses and promptly shut off the boiler. Then I dragged Satoko's small body out of the bathtub. The water in it was as hot as the water in public bath. Was she in this boiling water for the entire night? She'll die. She'll die. Satoko's body was lighter than I had expected as I laid her on the floor and wrapped her in a towel. I went back into the bathroom and opened up the vent, creating a path for a cool breeze to come through. Upon the breeze hitting her, Satoko moaned again. It'll be alright, Satoko. It's me, Keiichi. Keiichi! Can you hear me? Keiichi-sa. Satoko recognized me and muttered a response, but I couldn't really tell what she was saying. Her eyes were muddy and unfocused. I could tell she wasn't completely conscious. Upon closer inspection, her limbs and waist were twitching slightly. This was way worse than normal overheating. This was dangerous. Didn't they call this heat stroke? Think, what would the teacher do if a girl passed out in the middle of summer during a marathon in gym class or something? I turned the water faucet in the kitchen all the way on and soaked the towel in it. I then took the cold towel and pressed it to Satoko's forehead. Yeah, well, bathtubs there are a bit older, but yeah, it's closer to, well, actually no, probably not a hot tub level of heat, but pretty hot. I then took the cold towel and pressed it to Satoko's forehead. Satoko reacted harshly to the coldness and let out a muffled voice. For burns, right, you would soak the burn spot under running water. Then, could I run cold water in the shower and cool her off like that? No, if it was that sudden, it wouldn't be good for her heart. She'd go into shock. I think I've read that once before. This was about as much nursing as I could possibly give her. Anything more than this would be too much for the likes of an amateur. What happened, Satoko? You're alright now. I will. Your kneading will save you for sure. Oh yeah, that is closer to what it is, huh? 5,039. Cough. 40. She was counting how long she was in there, I guess. What was Satoko reciting under her breath? I brought my ear to her mouth to better make out the mysterious spell-like words she kept saying. But yeah, this is set in 83, so I wonder how those bathtubs were back in 83. And it's in Japan, so they might have been a tiny bit behind. Warmed by fire. Wood-fired hot tubs, that's like current stuff. I won't be able to find it quickly, so I'll leave that be. And at that moment, I understood what they were for. Satoko, you're counting? Why? People tell little kids in the bath to count to 100 a lot, right? Satoko was counting like that. But 5,039? You moron! How long is that? 60 would be a minute, 600 would be 10 minutes. Right? 60, 600, 6,000 would be another times 10, that'd be 100 minutes, right? I suppose she fell asleep and woke up and remembered the number then, because that'd only be 2 hours. How long were you supposed to count in your own bathtub? 10,000. I doubted my ears, doubted her common sense. 10,000? You're a freaking idiot. What kind of dumbass can count to 10,000? There's no way you could do that. You'd boil to death before you got that far. Why were you... My uncle. Last night, her uncle flew into a rage at the dinner she'd made, saying it stunk and was inedible. Satoko didn't understand what on earth he meant. It wasn't much different than what she usually made for him. Maybe he hated the smell of the pickled vegetables she bought in particular. Her uncle then decided the stink was originating from Satoko and shouted at her that she never ever took baths. Then he put Satoko in the boiling water and told her not to come out until she counted 2. Oh, I'll kill you! Oh. I snapped and exploded. Raising the newspaper-wrapped hatchet, I stampeded through the house, not caring about Satoko whatsoever. I searched for anything, traces, signs, smells, vibrations, heartbeats. With a war cry, I raced up the stairs with such force I could have stomped a hole through them. Then I found the futon in the room I thought to be her uncle's, and well aware he wasn't sleeping in it, I bashed it with the hatchet. Did he run into the closet? I'll bust the entire closet down, door and all. And if he's not there, maybe there's a secret door. Any switches or levers in the walls here? I smashed into wall after wall with the hatchet, crushing them. Dust rose into the air, and broken pieces scattered about the floor. I smashed all the glass windows, too, for good measure. Whoa! After I destroyed everything beyond recognition in her uncle's room, my reason finally kicked in and suppressed my emotions. Anyway, her uncle wasn't in the house right now. Oh yeah, this entire chapter's logic has been flaky at best. I'd have to leave killing him until later. Right now, I had to do something about Satoko. After destroying her room, I'll return to take care of Satoko. I went back to the changing room. Satoko was still lying limp on the floor. There was nothing more than an amateur like me could do for her. I needed to take her to the clinic. Coach had treated me like a lunatic yesterday and tried to lock me up in a mental hospital. I never wanted to see his damn face again. But I still needed to go to the infirmary once more time. I needed to have a doctor look at Satoko. He might be hiding under the floorboards of the house. Gotta check all those. I thought about putting her in the dirty uniform lying in the laundry basket, but I had no experience dressing someone, so it would be pretty difficult. Shit, I don't have time to be wasting here. I eventually gave up on clothing her and decided to carry her in her bath towel. The clinic was close to Satoko's house. It would be way faster to carry her there than to call 119 and get an ambulance. I threw the biggest towel I could find over her and prompted her to stand. Can you stand? I'll carry you over to the clinic. Thank you. Her words sounded clearer than before. She was starting to come back. I cried tears of relief just knowing she'd improved even a little bit. Satoko turned over so she was lying on her face, and then put up a weak struggle to get on a knee. I smoothly swept her up and put her on my back. The towel I put on her seemed like it was about to fall off. The towel, it hurts. We'll be there soon. It won't be long, so stay strong. It didn't hurt one bit to carry Satoko. She was light. Too light. The lightness actually made me uneasy. Outside, it had gotten hotter, as though eager to attack Satoko. Fucking cicadas. Why did it have to choose this morning to get so hot out? I didn't have time to swear at them. The clinic was this way. Hoisting Satoko on my back, I broke into a trot. Sippy time. The hilly road to the clinic, with which I had never had difficulties before, was now torturous, almost like I was carrying someone and walking instead of riding a bike. Big beads of sweat formed on my brow, and at some point my breath had grown faint. The hatchet in my belt was heavy and made it hard to walk. Why carry it with you? You could just leave it at the entrance or something. I considered leaving it, but I couldn't let it go, at least not while Satoko's uncle was still breathing. The signboard for the Irie clinic came into sight. But I quickly noticed something was odd, so I stopped. Several red revolving lights were flashing at the clinic. 3 police cars were parked in the parking lot with their lights on. There didn't need to be much else to inform me something had happened. I didn't want to see Coach, so I had planned to leave Satoko in the clinic waiting room and give the receptionist the message. But with that police officer Oishi here, I couldn't go inside so carelessly. What's going on? Why are there so many police cars? That model's a bit not safe for work. Did they put that in the original too? I gently put Satoko down in the shade of the thicket. I don't know. I'll go see what happened, so you stay here for a moment. Leaving a lady in a place like this wearing nothing but a bath towel, simply unforgivable. If you can still fire off those insults, you'll be fine. I'll be right back, I added, getting to my feet. Cautious of my surroundings, I hid myself behind a car and got closer to the officers grouped at the clinic's entrance. I overheard an officer wearing a necktie, probably their leader, and a white-robed doctor having a discussion about something. The doctor didn't seem to be Coach. It was one of those who Coach told to make the tea yesterday. So you were the first one to find it since you were on morning duty. So then, what did it look like? He was sitting on the sofa in the head office. He looked like he was taking a nap. There was a jug and an empty bottle of sleep medication on his desk, so you immediately thought he had tried to commit suicide with it. What else? His high temperature and incontinence indicated a severe disturbance of consciousness. It seemed like a typical case of sleeping pill poisoning, so I immediately began to treat him. Without calling the police or an ambulance? This is a hospital, and I'm a doctor. Since his life was in danger, it's my job to treat him at once. Yes, I understand. Okay, what else? His breathing was in disarray, so I put him on a respirator. He's got the COVIDs. I also administered breathing stimulants. It had no effect, so I prepared a medical ventilator and... Right. So in other words, you did what you could, but it wasn't enough. That's it, right? You reported this as soon as he died? Yes. It was very unfortunate that we were unable to save him. Just then, a radio in one of the police cars started to buzz, producing a broken, mechanical voice. This is HQ. Komiyama-san, can you hear me? Over. Hello, this is Komiyama. We've come up with something. It looks like he committed suicide with sleeping pills. No notes or anything. Suicide? What the heck were they talking about? Someone had committed suicide at the clinic. But who? Who would be in the head office? I wished Takano-san dead, and she died the next day. And yesterday I wished Coach was dead. And could he have? Did he use sleeping medication regularly? I don't really know. Did he normally complain that he was tired or wanted to die? Well, Irie-sensei was normally himself. He never acted like that. So I was right. Irie-sensei. They were talking about Coach. Coach killed himself. Why would he do that? There couldn't have been any reason he wanted to die. The only reason that came to mind was that I wanted him dead. This world was insane. If I wanted someone dead, they'd die. That was the kind of world this was. Then, what about Oishi? What about him? What happened to him? If people really died because I wanted them to, then something should have happened to him too. I've sent you backup. The chief wants you to leave the rest of them and get back to searching for Oishi's car. Yes, sir. Please excuse me, then. It looks like we're getting relieved here, so please leave everything as it is right now. Alright, let's go. The officers nodded and split up into the patrol cars. Did they just say searching for Oishi's car? Searching for his car. That meant he had gone missing? Takano-san, Coach, and Oishi. Why I wished for it the very next day. They disappeared. No matter how angry you were when you said you wished someone was dead, it didn't normally happen. Everyone knew just wishing for it wouldn't make them dead. That's why people could utter such curses so lightly. But the curses I uttered were being granted. He sure is. At the time, I haven't even been walking, and yet... Tap. I heard a footstep. And it wasn't only one this time. Tap, tap. They came from behind, and they stood right behind me, reaching a hand for my shoulder. It was Satsuko. Would you mind telling me what's going on? Ugh! Satsuko? Don't scare me like that. I'm the one scared here. I'd prefer if you didn't shout so suddenly. It was Satsuko. Her eyes were still unstable, unfocused, but she seemed able to at least walk on her own now. She looked far better now compared to her early exhausted state. Oh, you still didn't see it? Sure, one sec. There you go. Space bar. How do you feel? Are you better? My head still hurts, but I can't stay outside looking like this forever. She gave a smile, a show of courage, but her legs were still shaky. Anyway, what on earth is going on? From what I just heard the police talking about, Coach apparently committed suicide. Eh? Satsuko was at a loss for words. Her face grew paler and paler, and I could tell she was doubting her own ears. Keiichi-san, is that true? I didn't mishear you? That's what I heard. They said Irie-sensei killed himself with sleeping pills. Satsuko went down on her knees and broke out in tears. It can't be. Coach, he would never ever kill himself. As I watched Satsuko crying and clawing at the grass, I felt myself trapped by guilt and remorse. I got so angry that Coach was treating me like a madman yesterday. That he betrayed me. That I thought he'd be better off dead. But even Coach, who to me deserved to die, still must have had people who loved and respected him. Like Satsuko here. In my selfish, egotistical anger, I wished for his death, and it was granted. And now Satsuko was crying hysterically as a result. The guilt tore at my heart. I worked myself up to a murder for Satsuko's sake. I decided I wanted Satsuko to be happy. But was that really all it took? Murder meant taking someone's life. It meant making everyone attached to that person sad. In Satsuko's uncle's case, of course, nobody would be sad, so I didn't feel a sense of guilt at all. But Coach's death was different. I had wanted to make Satsuko happy, and that had resulted in me inflicting a deep sadness upon her, hadn't it? But Coach killed himself. It wasn't my. Stop. Satsuko still hadn't stopped crying, but she seemed to be a little calmer now. Wiping her tears, she stood up. I'm sorry. And the only thing I could think of to say to her was an apology. Why are you apologizing? Yesterday I got into a fight with Coach, and I thought that I wanted him to die. I wanted it so he really... Satsuko looked at me dubiously for a few moments. Eventually, her expression softened as she interpreted my words in her own way. It isn't your fault, Keiichi-san. Coach was an adult too. He felt like there was something he had to give his life for, and chose to do so after a lot of worrying and suffering. It's not anyone's fault. She smiled a little, trying to comfort me. I do not want to be naked forever. I want some clothes. Are you okay? Shouldn't you get someone at the clinic to... I won't die from putting on clothes before going. Satsuko readjusted her bath towel and started along the path. Her stride was wobbly, and it didn't look like she had recovered as much as she let on. Yeah, that might be just me reading it, that it sounds casual. At first, Satsuko tried to go back home, but it was the time of the morning when people were going to school and to work, So after seeing people walking around, she thought better of it. She must have been pretty embarrassed wearing only the towel. I'm going to Rika's house. My clothes should be there. What's wrong? H-san. Sako noticed how I was hanging my head and spoke to me. Despite how he might have come off, Coach was an adult, alright? He would certainly not have killed himself after a petty fight with you, Keiichi-san. Please stop blaming yourself. At first, I thought it was a coincidence, but with 3 people now, I couldn't discard the possibility. There was no such thing as impossible in this world. He's just forgetting that he had to physically kill her uncle, and hadn't cursed him to death. These past few days haven't made any sense. What hasn't? Satoko seemed to be having trouble breathing, but she still tried to listen to what I had to say. At the Watanabe festival the day before last, you went home on the way there, right? And I went there and had a lot of fun. So it would seem. I do apologize for getting so upset with you about it. Satoko remembered how she blew up at me in the classroom yesterday and bowed to me a little. If I said I actually didn't go to the festival at all, would you believe me? Satoko looked at me, confused. She couldn't help it, of course. Of course I wouldn't believe you. What are you on about? You wouldn't, right? I don't believe it either. I mean, I didn't go to the festival, but everyone's saying I hung out with them there. Nobody would believe it, right? Are you being serious? Yeah. Ever since the night of Watanabe, everything's been messed up. These weird footsteps suddenly started following me everywhere. The blood drained from Satoko's expression. Footsteps following you? Yeah. I thought it was just my imagination at first, but they stayed with me. They're probably still there. I can't tell them apart now because of your footsteps, though. Satoko took a long and hard look at me. Maybe she was doubting my sanity. Coach did the same thing. I mean, why wouldn't he after telling him this? The more I thought about it, the more I was unable to endure the feeling that my hatred for Coach had been meaningless. On the day of Watanabe, I didn't go. I was doing something else. The whole time. I wasn't sleeping or unconscious or anything. So it's not possible that I walked to the festival in my sleep and forgot about it afterwards. That is quite strange. And how were you at the festival? That's what I mean. I didn't go to the festival. No. I can't let myself get emotional. If I get agitated now, that'd be like proving that there's something wrong with my head. Ah, sorry. Well, nobody believes me, so, yeah. If that is what you say, Keiichi-san, I will believe you. Then what? That night, I saw Takano-san, and it felt like she was looking down on me. So I made a wish that she would die. Takano-san does have that sort of air about her, doesn't she? I cannot say that I don't understand how you feel. Did you know that Takano-san died? It happened yesterday. Apparently she was burned alive somewhere. Is that true? She died? I wished for her to die. And the next day, she was dead. And Oishi from the police, too. Do you know him? That annoying fat detective guy. Satoko nodded a little. I heard from the police earlier, but apparently he went missing. And yesterday, actually, wished that he would die. Is this all true? I'm not lying. I don't want to believe it either, but it's true. Takano-san, Coach, and Oishi, I wanted them dead, and then they really died. For a little while, Satoko was at a loss. A long silence ensued. What a scary story. I should be sure not to get on your bad side, Keiichi-san. And that's not all. There's something even stranger. It's about your uncle. I would rather you not talk about my uncle. He was there yesterday, right? At your house? Would you please stop talking about him? I don't want to. It's impossible. He couldn't have been there. I said stop talking about him. No. No! That man couldn't have been there after the night of Watanabe. Because I... No! No more, please. No more about that man. I killed him. With my own hands. Even the cicadas stopped crying. Her face was streaked with tears, and it stiffened even more, as she looked at me in disbelief. On the night of the Watanabe festival, I killed your uncle. So, it's impossible that he could have gone back home. But still, he went back. And last night, he found fault with the dinner you made him, yelled all sorts of things at you, and then basically boiled you in the bathtub. That couldn't possibly have happened. So I wanted to make sure I'd actually killed him, so yesterday I went to dig up the corpse I buried. But the body wasn't there. Is that even possible? I killed him for sure, but there was no body. And he went home like nothing happened. Home to you, and that wasn't supposed to happen, was it? Satoko's entire body stiffened. She was shrinking away, like there was someone in front of her, about to hurt her. You probably think I've gone a little crazy, don't you? I don't blame you. I can't believe it myself. Keiichi-san, I think you are very confused after all the people you wished were dead coincidentally died. You're just in shock at Coach's suicide, and you're really upset. I think you should stay home from school today and rest. I'll be fine, so please take care of yourself. Satoko spoke like she understood me, but she also told me to go home. I could see the revulsion in her face and knew that she didn't want to be around me anymore. Once I show you to the clinic, I'll go home. Your legs are still shaking, aren't they? It would be terrible if you collapsed halfway there. Really, I'm fine now. I do not want to expose my naked self to a man any more than this. She wobbled up the shrine steps, looking like she was about to fall. I immediately ran up to her and helped her stay on her feet. But then Satoko promptly jumped away from me. The outright rejection hurt a lot. Once she got to the top of the stairs, her breathing was ragged, and she wasn't even looking at me. At this point, I was being ignored. Well, it was more like she didn't want to have anything to do with me. It really was a feeling of rejection. And that hurt my heart more than any blade could have. This was the path I chose for her sake. To be treated like this at the end of it all was just so saddening. Don't be naive, Keiichi. You never wanted to be repaid in the first place. You didn't do it so that Satoko would thank you. You did it so Satoko would be happy. And that was what led to this ending. Rikichan's house was a disaster prevention storehouse used by the town council. If you went past it a little further through the shrine grounds, you'd apparently reach the back of the assembly hall. Satoko was heading there, walking quickly, the gravel under her feet crunching as she went. Did she want to get there as soon as possible, or did she want to run away? I couldn't tell. And then I heard the vigorous sound of wings flapping. I turned around and saw a crow. I hadn't seen many crows since coming to Hinamizawa. I saw them a lot in my old town, though. On garbage day, they'd flock to trash collection points, peck through the bags with their beaks, drag out the contents, and have a feast. As I was remembering that, I saw a few crows flocking around the shrine's donation box. And I thought how terrible it was for someone to leave a garbage bag in a place like that. The cicadas quieted. Breathing stopped. Thoughts ceased. Even time came to a halt. I ran over to where the crows were flocking. I ran there in order to drive a horrible idea out of my mind. I definitely hadn't wanted this. There's no way I would ever wish for this, even by mistake. This was not. When they noticed my vicious approach, the crows all flapped upwards, fleeing into the sky. When the crows' big black bodies flew away, they exposed the garbage bag. Wah! Ah! What had I seen there? The scream had escaped from my throat before I understood what I was looking at. What was this? Satoko came over as well, realizing something had happened. And she looked over my shoulder. Then she screamed as well. This wasn't... The garbage bag was crimson, dyed in fresh blood. Enough of this stupid roundabout way of saying it. That's right. Yes. It was Rikichan. Our friend, Satoko's best friend. Always easygoing, clever as a cat, but so cute you couldn't hate her. Our friend, Rika-chan. Rika-chan was stark naked. She was face up, limbs sprawled. Her eyes were like glass, just staring up into the sky. And, and, ah, Rika! 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 Ah! Satoko broke down crying on the spot, and yet she still couldn't approach her friend's remains. The crows had gotten through the garbage bag and they dragged out an apple peel and spread it all over. No, crows, they couldn't do this. Boy! On the spot, I started vomiting. The sour taste became a bitter one as I threw up over and over again. Rika-chan, this creaking is annoying. Her stomach was cut wide open, vertically, completely opened. Rika! Ah! Crows couldn't have done this. And from her open stomach, her organs, her bowels, were dragged out like children's toys left all over the floor. That unbelievable sight induced oxygen deprivation in my brain. Color left my vision, a pounding headache, dizzy, and I wanted to vomit. It was like the nightmarish remains of a ceremonial killing. Someone, somewhere, had killed Rika-chan, brought her here, laid her here with her limbs sprawled out, and then cut open her stomach, and dragged out her intestines. Red and pink viscera were sticking out of her gut, and her intestines were scattered in every direction, like it had been for fun. The entire ground was covered in an ocean of red and black. A few of the crows had hopped around inside that ocean. They walked through the sea of blood, leaving bloody footprints. In those footprints, there were several still left on Rika-chan's body. Those sinister prints made it seem even more like a bizarre ritual killing. I may have wished for Takano-san and Coach and Ndoishi to die, but I didn't remember ever wishing for Rika-chan's death. Yeah, it wasn't me. It wasn't me. Well, at least you'll be thankful that I didn't make my vomiting noise. I make a pretty good impression of vomiting. I stumbled backwards, then stepped on a newspaper. A newspaper? In a place like this? The newspaper was what was covering my hatchet. I'd kept it wrapped up and on my belt in order to carry Satoko, and that newspaper had fallen off. Jeez, don't scare me like that. I bent down to pick it up, and then Satoko looked at me with such disbelief as I'd never seen, and froze, almost looking like I was a murderer. She was looking straight at me, at the hatchet, on my belt. Calm down, Satoko. This isn't what it looks like. Satoko, trembling madly, backed away. It wasn't me. It wasn't me. It wasn't... She didn't care at all that she was exposing herself through the towel. She just trembled and tried to step back from the demon in front of her. Satoko, please calm down. Please, relax. Satoko. No. No! Screaming weakly, Satoko began to run, unsteadily. Run away, that is. Wait, please wait, Satoko. You're wrong. That's not it. The way she ran away, it was so weak, so slow. So if I wanted to go after her, I could have caught up. But if I tried to grab Satoko's shoulder or something right now, she might actually go crazy. So I had to follow her and try to clear this up. You killed Takano-san and Coach and Oishi-san, didn't you? You killed my uncle. And then you killed Rika. You murderer! No, it wasn't me. I didn't kill her. What are you saying? You just said it yourself, did you not? You wanted them to die. And then everyone died, didn't they? Well, no. Just wishing that they were dead. That couldn't. You don't even remember what you did you? Do you? How can I trust a person like you? Didn't your memory of killing them just slip your mind? No, maybe you're only pretending not to remember. Besides, what is that hatchet for? Try explaining that. It's for... See? See? Keiichi-san, you're a killer, aren't you? Why did you do it? You were a little mean, but you were fun and kind, and once I even thought you might be my real Nini. Why did you turn into this? I might have been able to slowly answer each of one of Satoko's questions at a time. But in this situation, explaining my innocence in such a short period of time was impossible. I mean, I didn't even know if I was really innocent anyway. At the very least, I killed Satoko's uncle. There was no body, but I killed him. Without a doubt. At that point, I was far from innocent. And I wish Takano-san, Coach, and Oichi were dead. And that curse of mine was granted. When I wished for Takano-san to die, I didn't think of it as anything more than a normal thing you'd say to someone you didn't like. But then she actually did die, and I realized that if I wanted people to die, they would. And, hoping it would happen again, I cursed Coach and Oishi to the same fate. So, even ignoring Takano-san's death, Coach's and Oishi's were completely premeditated crimes. Was I a killer, just like Satoko said? Was I unable to distinguish between illusion and reality, and turned into a demon without remembering it, becoming a killer who carried out Oyashiro-sama's curse? No, that couldn't be. It was impossible. Ah, damn it. The very word impossible was impossible in Humizo right now. How many freaking times have I said that word these past 3 days? Satoko had started crying again, and was walking unsteadily. At first it felt like she was still running, but now it was like she was walking away, crying from someone bullying her. Why? Why did things turn out this way? Why? Why? If there was an answer to that, then I wanted to know it too. Why? Why had it turned out like this? After Nini went away, I was lonely for a long time. But then Keiichi-san transferred to our school, and everyone was happy again. It was fun again. Every day was beautiful. Yeah, she was right. Those days were bright and beautiful. And yet, after that, Satoko and I shouted the exact same thing. How did it turn out like this? The cicadas were snaring at the spectacle. Our strange game of tag. Ah, shut up, shut up, shut up. Eventually I heard the murmuring of a stream. The forest parted, and a suspension bridge appeared. Satoko was crossing dangerously, wobbling as though she might fall at any moment. And when I stepped onto the bridge, it swayed a lot, causing Satoko to stagger and fall on the spot. Satoko, are you okay? Don't come near me! You murderer! Satoko shouted, her hatred made very clear. It was sad. If words could cut, then this warmth flowing from my eyes would have been blood for sure. Why did you turn out this way? Keiichi-san, I really liked you. I wanted to go up to her and give her a hand, but the distance between us was uncrossable. If I got any closer, Satoko would start shouting again, and say things that would hurt me deeply again. So I couldn't approach any closer than this. Satoko, I don't know how things turned out like this either, but I can say this. I wasn't the one who killed Rika-chan. At least that is true. Please stop being so absurd. How do you expect me to believe anything someone who can't even rely on his own memories has to say? I tightened my hands into fists. This was mortifying. I wasn't crazy. Hinamizawa was crazy, ever since I wandered into it, lost on that one night. This insane world where I was at the festival when I wasn't, and the uncle I killed was alive. Where death would come just by wishing for it. It was this world's fault. Mion and Rena started acting strangely, like they were possessed by something too. And Coach wouldn't believe anything I had to say. And even Satoko, who I should have protected, was yelling at me like this. Was the price for killing a man supposed to be this high? Was I really going to be forced to stay in such a bitter world? I did the right thing. At least I wanted to. So then, why? I hated it. Every time I asked why, the days Satoko and I enjoyed in peace went so wrong. Satoko, please believe me. I'm not a murderer. Then what is that hatchet for? Can you give a convincing explanation for that? Is this hatchet scaring you? Okay, I'll throw it away. That's what you want, right? Satoko didn't nod, but she seemed to be in agreement with that proposition. I clumsily took the hatchet out of my belt, and then dropped it over the side of the bridge, into the stream below. There, it's gone. Now you'll listen to me, right? You think I'll let my guard down just because you got rid of your weapon? Keiichi-san, you're strong. It would be easy for you to strangle me with your bare hands. Like hell I would ever want to kill Satoko. You idiot. Then what should I do? Should I put my hands on my head? Yes, why don't you? Please put your hands on your head and face the other way. It was a cunning plan, much like the ones she used during club activities. Putting my hands on my head and turning away would mean I couldn't attack Satoko very easily. I immediately acquiesced to her request, since it would make her feel better. Is this alright? Please listen to what I have to say. Satoko stood up, then carefully approached me from behind. And then she actually came right up behind me. She was so close, yet I was so sad that I wasn't allowed to turn around. I sort of think I understand that it isn't your fault, Keiichi-san. Huh? I think, probably, you've just been possessed by something evil. Until before, I thought Keiichi-san was a killer, but now I know. After looking at your eyes, I could hear that Satoko was still crying, but her voice was gentle just the same. Keiichi-san could never kill anyone. Something simply possessed his body and made him do evil things. Was she speaking literally right now? Or was she trying to admonish me? I couldn't tell. Come to think of it, maybe they were possessed, just like Keiichi-san. At the time, I was only thinking I would be killed, so I didn't think about it. But now I understand. That was the work of something evil that possessed you. Satoko? What are you... It was less like she was talking to me, more like she was talking to herself, like she was confessing at my back. So let's see what she was saying exactly. If I read this again. I was only thinking I would be killed, so I didn't think about it. I understand, you know? It isn't like I haven't experienced it myself. Satoko's voice started to become mixed with sobs. Her pained voice tore at my heart. But I didn't know what Satoko was talking about. I climbed to the top of the ritual storehouse once. It was a few years ago. Once when Satoko was playing hide-and-seek at the shrine grounds, she climbed onto the roof of the storehouse for ritual implements, which everyone said not to go near, and hid. Then Satoko saw that she could get in through a window meant for ventilation. For Satoko, the word curse was plenty scary, but she was more curious about what was inside the unknown storehouse. She removed the grating on the window, which was already hanging off, slid her small body into it, and climbed down inside. It was too dark to see much, but after descending, she realized just how high up she had been. Despite the darkness, she could see a few things around her, thanks to the faint light coming in from the air window. And to her disappointment, it was just a regular old storehouse. She tried to leave, but the door was locked up tight from the outside. It was made to not open from within. She would have to go back out through the ventilation window she had come in from. But the window was high up on the wall, and there was no way she would be able to climb back up. Satoko desperately tried not to cry, and racked her brain thinking of a way to get up there. There were a lot of bird cage-looking things hanging by chains from the ceiling. She took the hanging chains and strung them up along the wall. If she climbed up the bundle of chains, she might be able to manage to climb up to the ventilation window. There was nothing else she could do, so she had to try. And try she did. It was dark and creepy, and she didn't want to stay there forever. The more she thought about that, the more she panicked. She climbed the bundle of chains. Satoko could hear the clinks and clangs of everything creaking under her weight. And then, just as her hand reached the window, one of the metal fixtures she'd used to stick the chains on the wall flew off, and the chains all began to pull loudly and furiously every which way. Spurred on by the sounds behind her, she managed to get back onto the roof from the window. Because of the weight of the flailing bundle of chains, the other fixtures broke. And then one of the big bird cages hanging from the ceiling fell to the floor with a huge noise. Under it was an image of Oyashiro-sama, his vessel, and the cage took off one of the arms, then trapped some other implements beneath it. It didn't take very long for her to grow scared of what she had done. The deafening noise could be heard from the rest of the shrine grounds. A few other children heard it and gathered around. And of course, Rika was one of them. Then Rika's father, the shrine priest, with an angry look ran over. And then, as for what happened next, it was painful to remember. The only one who knew where Rika's parents kept the key to the ritual storehouse was Rika. So he scolded her, saying that this happened because Rika pulled a prank and hid me in there. He was very, very angry and menacing. Just looking at him was enough to frighten anyone. He exposed Rika's back, took a strangely shaped ritual cane or something, and struck her with it several times. Rika's words at the time, "It wasn't me. It wasn't me. I'm sorry. I'm sorry." That pitiful voice, I still can't get it out of my head. I should have said it was me. I should have said so, to save my best friend from that false accusation, without being afraid of Rika's father's terrible temper. Rika gritted her teeth and cried, at the crime she didn't remember doing. Ever since then, the world had been strange. I know, I understand. This is Oyashiro-sama's curse. His judgment for messing up the ritual storehouse and forsaking my best friend. Oyashiro-sama's curse? My father and mother, too, they vanished in that muddy stream. My mean aunt died, too. But then Nini, who loved me more than anyone, ran away from home. And then Keiichi-san transferred in, and I thought I'd finally gotten my fun life back. But this time, Keiichi-san was possessed. And even Rika got killed. There's something I heard once. Oyashiro-sama, when he really curses someone, he doesn't kill them right away. He goes in order of your closest friends, and after killing them all, he kills that person last. So, Keiichi-san, the curse got you too. I'm sure that Ren-san and Mion-san will be cursed next. And then they'll kill and be killed. No, no more. No! Calm down, Satoko. There is no curse. Nobody's trying to torment you. When I turned around, I was thrust away with amazing force. Given my hands were awkwardly placed on my head, I couldn't take the fall and lost my balance. And I'd been pushed not into the bridge, but to the side. Towards the stream. No, this can't be happening. Whoa! As one last miracle, I was allowed to grab a cord hanging from the bridge. Far below me was the stream. We were pretty high up, and below were rocks of all sizes. If I fell, it clearly wouldn't be pretty. The entire bridge was tilting under my body weight. My frail little grip probably wouldn't last another minute before my fingers had to let go. Satoko! Satoko! I didn't understand myself, what I meant by shouting her name then. Was I asking her to save me? Or was I asking her why she did this? Finally, everything came back into focus, and I saw Satoko. And I was surprised at what an odd expression she had. It was the first time I had seen it. It was an expression of righteous anger meant only for those who needed to die. Die, you murderer! Give him back! Give back my Nini! Give back Rika and Mommy and Keiichi-san! As she screamed, she jerked the bridge to and fro. She didn't have to do that. I was going to fall anyway. I won't lose to the likes of you. I won't lose to some stupid curse. I will never, ever lose to you. You took everyone. I'll never lose to you. Not ever. Satoko, please, just let me say one thing. I don't know what my face looked like at the time, but it seemed like it was enough to quell Satoko's agitation. I know that what I did isn't exactly praiseworthy. No, in fact, maybe I should never have done it at all. But I did it because I wanted you to be happy. Please, just believe that. You, at the very, very end, you're still pretending to be Kage-san. Satoko didn't seem to have any more desire to listen to what I had to say. And for that to happen at the very end like this was tragic. I didn't do any of it so you would praise me. If it made you happy, that was all that mattered. We were nothing. Without your smile, we were nothing. So, after I disappear, please, smile. If you can get on with your new life by my dying, then please, just smile. Can't you at least promise me that? Stop speaking! Don't use Keiji-san's mouth like that. Fall down. Die! And those were the last words Satoko ever said to me. Those sad, tragic, and altogether unrewarding words. What on earth was I? My desire to make Satoko happy ended up like this. Where did I first go wrong? And what was the mistake I made? When did I make it? Was I the crazy one? Or was it Hinamizawa? Even after all this, I thought I wasn't crazy at all. It was this eerie world that was crazy. This world I'd accidentally wandered into that one night. Because that fun world, where I never doubted all the crazy times we had as a club would go on forever. It couldn't possibly have transformed into such an abnormal world. That fun world wouldn't have ever ended with this, with Satoko pushing me to my death. In the end, I was going to be swallowed up by this crazy world and disappear. No, I'd probably already disappeared. Yes, probably. On the night of Watanagashi. I'm sure that in the world I really belonged to, I had vanished that night, and everyone was worried. That it was laughable that I had taken this long to figure out I wasn't around anymore. Oyashiro-sama's curse on the 5th year was Satoko's uncle and dying and me disappearing. In the real world, Satoko had already been freed. Maybe my friends were all lamenting my disappearance and valiantly trying to get back on their feet. And even though they were down to 4 people, the club would reopen. They would have a good time without me, waiting for the day when I would come back. Sorry, everyone. I couldn't come back home. But this is what I wished for. It was my wish for Satoko's smile and my duty as her Nini. At this point, there will be nobody left to torture you. Because Satoshi and I, it took 2 years, but we succeeded. That annoying toothy smile of yours, we wanted to see it. One more time. Of course, because this is chapter 3 and we're already in 3 different worlds. What's wrong with the 4th world being created in the middle of this chapter? My pain wasn't gentle or merciful. It was a sharp pain, violent, powerful, and ruthless. What little compassion I had receded in the span of a moment. And now, I could die. I could say goodbye to this insane world. Farewell, crazed Hinamizawa. Thanks for giving me the psychic power to kill people whenever I wanted. If you'll still allow it, I'll wish for one last thing. The death of this very world, of this crazed Hinamizawa, so that nobody would ever again have to find themselves lost here again. End scene. Sometimes I feel like the new version could have had like better like event scenes, maybe just for the end of the chapter. Like the scene of her and him on the bridge. Could have had a special, like, picture rather than just the bridge. Research notes. Oyashiro-sama. Nobody really knows what characters to use to write Oyashiro-sama. Knowing this is hard partly because depending on the time period, he has been called with various titles, with subtle changes to his name, and nobody knows the real one. The only thing all time periods agree on is that the four syllables O, Ya, Shi, Ro are always used. There is a theory stating the shrine, or yashiro, dedicated to Oyashiro-sama, itself became an object of worship, and that people began calling it Oyashiro-sama, or Lord Honorable Shrine. But this doesn't make a bit of sense. I didn't know whether this is related, but people say the Furude family, the most respected bloodline in terms of worshipping Oyashiro-sama, actually inherited his blood. And in the legend, the Furude family passes down. If for 8 generations in a row the firstborn child is a girl, the 8th daughter will be the reincarnation of Oyashiro-sama. If we go by this legend, the characters used for Oyashiro-sama's name should be O for honorable, Ya for 8, and Shiro for generation. These character assignments are simply something I've thought up. There's no way to verify it. If this is true, then Oyashiro-sama would have been named as such under the assumption he would come again. The second coming of an object of worship can be seen in several religions, so this isn't unusual. But a few of these religions call the second coming of their object of worship a day of judgment, or something along those lines, and we must not forget that they mean it to be the end of the world. Rika Furude, pampered and loved dearly by the elderly folk in the village. The rumors say she is the 8th generation, and Oyashiro-sama. I do not know the family tree of the Furudes, but at the very least, I can confirm that for the past 2 generations, the first child has been a girl. Rika Furude watches over Hinamizawa. If the village were to lose her protection, what would happen? Would peace be between man and demon be lost? Would it once again create a hellish landscape where man-eating demons run rampant? A gruesome feast of the demons, who suddenly remembered how delicious the weak humans were, who could only cry and scream and run for their lives. What would that look like? Just imagining it is enough to make my heart pound with excitement. That's the last notes for the chapter, so at the end we have the ending party. Or an epilogue of sorts. I think that's a first. Or is this the new chapter thingy? Title screen. It's very slowly brightening. And darkens. Oh. Huh. My head was pounding. Did I get the chapters wrong? The sky was bright. End of chapter 12. There's another chapter. Huh. It was cold, too. It hurt. Each sensation I felt led to a new and different one awakening. When I came to, I was lying face first on a dry riverbed. A few body parts hurt a lot. The skin over a bunch of my joints was torn, turned blue or red or oozing blood. I could tell it was my bones that were in pain from the agony I felt whenever I moved. I looked up and saw how high the bridge from which I had fallen was. Considering I had dropped from there, it was a miracle that I could open my eyes again. Right next to me was a broken, upside-down car seat, which I guess some pranksters had brought here. Maybe this thing had been conveniently lying right under me, allowing me to escape instant death. Miraculous. Of course, I didn't know whether this miracle was fortunate or unfortunate. I failed to die, and now I was still stuck in this insane world. How long had I been unconscious for? The sun was high in the sky, so it looked like only 1 or 2 hours had passed. Be right back, I gotta use the bathroom. but my body's sluggishness didn't make it feel at all like so short of time had gone by. Mentally, it felt like I'd been asleep here for a decade. Ow. The more feeling returned to my body, the more the pain flooded in. It hurt so much it would have been better not to have woken up. I needed to get to a doctor. Yeah, to Coach's clinic. The term Coach's clinic brought memories back one after another. Memories I wish I hadn't recalled. Satoko is no longer on the bridge. She would have returned to Hinamizawa by now. And she would put on some clothes, go to the clinic, get a checkup, and report on how crazy I had seemed. The police were waiting for me without a doubt. This time, would they find out for real that I had killed her uncle and arrest me? Or would they just send me to a mental institution like I thought they might? Still, I didn't care which it was. Please, someone stop all this pain. You can boil me or cook me after that, whatever you want. I began to walk unsteadily, just limping along. I went downstream, and then through an animal trail-like path in the woods. I walked haphazardly, searching for a path I knew. Eventually, I finally came across a familiar road, and set off towards the clinic. Not to my house, but to the clinic, which had treated me like a lunatic. It was hot and humid. There was no wind, and the air was stagnant. For a while now, I'd been smelling the terrible stench of burned eggs, and it made my face scrunch up. And then, at last, I noticed something. I couldn't hear any cicadas. It was the first time I'd heard Hinamizawa be so utterly silent. When I thought back, it seemed like birds always chirped in the morning, cicadas always cried loudly in the afternoon, and Higurashi always rose up in chorus in the evening. Always something to hear. I couldn't hear a single insect. The only thing I could hear was the rustling of the wind brushing the treetops. I'd never experienced this sort of quiet before. Even the only sound coming from the trees lacked life somehow. The trees were yellow, and many leaves were spread on the ground, despite it being too early for autumn. Even the weeds that had been growing so persistently at the side of the road had yellowed, browned, and lost their vigor. Only the sunlight itself was of the June Hinamizawa I knew, and yet it seemed like the seasons had switched all of a sudden. Looking at the fallen leaves and rotting weeds led me to spot a few small insects turned on their backs. They weren't moving. They were corpses. I looked closer to see insect corpses scattered all around, like a child had collected them as samples and then strewn them about. The stench, what was it? It was terrible, like burned eggs. Combined with all the bug corpses and leaves falling from the trees in summer. Had someone sprayed herbicides or pesticides around here? Even at school, we apparently fumigate. They call it pest disinfection or something, once or twice a year. I hadn't run into anybody, despite how bright it was outside. It was mid-afternoon, yet it felt like I was sauntering about at midnight. Well, with this smell, nobody would want to be walking around outside. Just what was this, anyway? There was no sound, no noise, not even a breath. Hinamizawa was silent. School would come into view, right after turning this corner, and yet I couldn't hear any commotion at all. None of the shouts or grunts that children always made. It was simply quiet. Just as pretending to ignore the silence had grown intolerable, I saw the school. And finally, I heard something. It was the sound of a few trucks. There were a few very tall trucks parked in the schoolyard, idling. About 10 workers in raincoats were unloading things from their trunks. It was hot and humid, even in my casual clothing. I couldn't imagine how unbearable that must have been. And then I remembered. Our school was rented from the Forest Service field office building, wasn't it? It wasn't strange at all for Forest Service trucks to be doing some kind of work in the schoolyard. Besides, what did forest rangers do anyway? I felt bad for them having to work in such heat and with such a stench about. They were taking colorful cargo out of the truck, and lining it up in the schoolyard. They were containers, fairly large ones, inside multicolored patchwork bags. Heavy, too. They were being carried in pairs. They lined them up very neatly, like tuna at a riverside fish market. You don't want this tuna, Keiichi. Several, dozens, hundreds of tuna were completely filling the fairly wide schoolyard up. I forgot my pain for a little while, captivated by this big forest ranger job I'd never seen before. As I stood there, watching in a daze, the people in raincoats working on the other side noticed me. One of them pointed me out, and they shouted a few things back and forth. I thought they might yell at me for getting in their way, so I decided to leave post-haste. But then, 2 trucks drove up behind me. I stepped aside and they entered the schoolyard. Sheets covered their trunks, but I could tell they were completely full. As they passed, there was an awful smell that made me want to choke. It wasn't the same burned egg smells as before, but an even worse one, like rotten crab meat. What on earth was it? I'd been enshrouded in one terrible stench after another all day. Then, certain white letters emblazoned on the side of the passing trucks caught my eye. Ground Self-Defense Forces. What? Self-Defense Forces? Like the army? Why was the army in the schoolyard? Hey, you! Where'd you come from? Suddenly, someone slapped me on the shoulders from behind. I turned around, and a canopied SDF Jeep was parked there. The SDF person had on a green raincoat and a gas mask, like in the movies, carrying a compressed air cylinder. He didn't look normal. There wasn't an inch of exposed skin anywhere. Where did I... When I tried to talk, I stretched a wound on my head. It made the SDF people exchange glances. I couldn't see their faces through their masks, but they seemed surprised. Do you live in Higurashi? Can you tell us your name and address? Well, yeah, I sort of live here. My name is Keiichi Maiba. Oh, and my address. Hinamizo Village, Shishibone. After seeing me tell them my name and address without hesitation, one of the SDF people watching from the Jeep started talking into a radio. Base, do you read? Base, do you read? We have a 402. Survivor discovered. I repeat, we have a 402. We found a survivor. He's in front of the Forest Service office. This is Base. We copy. Secure the survivor at once. What is his status? Healthy. Wounded all over, but not fatally. He can walk on his own. We'll send him to HQ for safety. I was prepared to go along with the police, but the SDF... I couldn't help but think it seemed a little bit much. They urged me into the back of the Jeep. And then they told me to put on this gigantic gas mask. I did so, and one of the troops fiddled around with it, strapping it tightly to me. It was heavy, hard to see out of, hot, and difficult to breathe. Just looking at the world through the lenses made it lose its sense of reality. My breathing sounded like some giant monster through the mask. At this point, I had no idea what was happening. With much trepidation, I asked the trooper adjusting my mask, excuse me, something happened? Where were you? What were you doing? Hey, don't answer a question with more questions. I was the one asking you. I, fell from a rope bridge way back in the mountains. I think I passed out on the riverbed. I don't actually know what day it is. Today is June 22nd, 1983, so that's one day later. Wednesday. That surprised me. Satoko pushed me off the bridge on Tuesday the 21st. That meant I'd been asleep on that riverbed for an entire day. Forgive me for asking again, but did something happen? Why is the SDF here? Is this a drill? Had my question been that difficult for him? None of the troopers would answer me. The one in the driver's seat talking on his own radio turned on the vehicles. He turned the dial and some broadcast station or another came in. I started to listen to the voice of a radio announcer I was familiar with. It was conducted at the Prime Minister's office. In regards to questions from the press that the SDF not responding to the disaster promptly was directly related to this unprecedented, unheard of catastrophe, Chief Cabinet Secretary Okuno had this to say. And so, I believe that once the SDF received the dispatch order from the prefectural governor, they responded promptly. According to him, The SDF was prompt to respond to the crisis after receiving their orders. He implied that it was the prefecture's responsibility for taking too long to comprehend the situation. When did the governor who requested the SDF's dispatch actually become aware of the outbreak of such an unprecedented catastrophe? And did he not invite further damage because of the time lost before he sent the request for disaster relief? In other words, because of the bureaucracy. We are awaiting further investigation into the matter. That was Mr. Okada, reporting from the Prime Minister's official residence. At this point, we can take another look at the political response following this disaster. In the middle of the night between June 21st and 22nd, a large-scale disaster broke out in Hinamizawa village, Shishibone. The details had not yet been investigated, but there was an eruption of volcanic gas from somewhere in the Hinamizawa area. The gas was relatively heavy, and as it spewed out, it began to flow. That flow went down along a small river and headed directly into Hinamizawa village. After a few hours, it had covered the entire region. It happened in the middle of the night, 2 to 4 a.m. Every home and household in the village was afflicted. With most of the residents asleep, it is thought that all died without noticing the crisis. The catastrophe striking in the middle of the night caused its detection to come too late. But there was still one small opportunity to have noticed it. 3 a.m. A news dealer's shop in Okonomiya sent a vehicle carrying the morning newspaper to its branch office in Hinamizawa. Usually the shop would be contacted upon the vehicle's arrival, but this morning that didn't happen. The news dealer's shop made repeated calls but got no response. The shopkeeper sent his eldest son to check on things, but they lost contact with him as well. It is extremely regrettable. If they had contacted the police or fire department at this point, it is highly possible the situation would have turned out more positively. At the very least, it's possible that a portion of the village might have been saved from tragic annihilation. 6 a.m. Residents in areas in the same region began continuously calling 119 to report the smell of rotten eggs, dizziness, nausea, and headaches. The fire department received the same reports, all from the same confined region. They speculated a truckload with chemicals may have gotten into an accident and reported it to the local police. 6:30 a.m. Contact was lost with the patrol car on duty in the Hinamizawa area after the officer reported the smell of rotten eggs. The local police considered the possibility of a large-scale disaster involving highly lethal gas and reported it to the prefecture and prefectural police at 7:15 a.m. 8 a.m. The governor was traveling to nearby prefectures for inspection, so in accordance with regulations, the prefectural environmental disaster prevention chief was provisionally escalated to Director General and set up a disaster countermeasures office. However, without contacting the governor, the countermeasures came too late. As has recently been pointed out by Citizens Troops, his trip with honorary Diet members to inspect other prefectures was based solely on good relations, and it's rumored they preoccupied themselves with a drinking party. Sources closer to him claimed the governor had been drinking all night and had gone to sleep in a drunken state. He was completely drunk when the environmental chief phoned him as well, and apparently he could not get him to pay any attention to the matter. And so it took about blank hour for the governor to sober up, gain an understanding of the situation, and gather information. Though not as extreme as the governor's case, the environmental chief, who had become Director General in the governor's absence, will likely also be questioned about his negligence. In addition, without any procedures in place on the prefecture side that predicted catastrophes this massive, they would always react too late. That ended up being fatal. 9:12 a.m. On the advice of the prefectural police, the governor requested a disaster relief mission from the SDF. By the time the Chemical Defense Unit, equipped with protective equipment, arrived on the scene, 8 hours had already passed since the incident's outbreak. Wherever the case may be, it was unfortunate this happened while everyone was sleeping in the middle of the night. Had the same disaster occurred during the day, it likely would have been entirely different. All households in the Hinamizawa village region were wiped out. There were over 1,000 victims. The SDF is still confirming the situation on the ground. but their results are predicted to only increase that number. Here with us in the studio today is Dr. Fujiwara, a professor at University who is well acquainted with volcanic disasters. Doctor, can such a sudden and horrible outburst of poisonous gas actually happen? It isn't at all unusual for this to happen right around craters, at least. Japan is a volcanic nation, and so has many active volcanoes. There is always a danger of hazardous gas around any of these craters, and it's generally a rule among mountain climbers not to go near them. Does this mean the rotten egg smell that visited Hinamizawa village was the normal solar gas from the volcanic craters? Judging by how it smelled like rotten eggs, we think it was hydrogen sulfide, a gas seen particularly frequently in accidents compared to other volcanic gases. If it's dense, it becomes extremely dangerous. Hinamizawa village is very far away from the craters of any volcanoes. Can hydrogen sulfide be generated even from a place not close to a crater? I don't know all the details, so I can't say anything concrete. But in other countries, there are records of gas eruptions due to magma buildup under hot springs. It's an extremely rare event, but it is possible for such a thing to happen even in a region not near craters. Thank you very much, Doctor. We appear to have an announcement from the Japan Defense Agency. Miss Morikawa, are you there? Yes, I'm at the Japan Defense Agency. The agency has just made an announcement regarding the source of the Hinamizawa village gas disaster. Analysis from the Ground Self-Defense Forces Department of Chemistry has found that the gas was a mixture of carbon dioxide and hydrogen sulfide. Miss Morikawa, do you know whether the gas is still erupting or spreading to nearby areas? According to the SDF's 9th Division, who are currently engaged in a rescue operation at Hinamizawa village, the gas density is steadily decreasing. They have announced that the damage will not spread. However, it does not change the fact that surrounding areas are still in danger, and that very strict observation must be maintained. That was Morikawa from the Japan Defense Agency. And now we have a report on the state of those who have been made to evacuate the Okonomiya area. Shimoshinozaki Elementary School is one of the evacuation sites, and we currently have a reporter on scene. Wait, what? Inside the jeep, clambering and bouncing along the rough road. None answered my muttered question. An unprecedented catastrophe had destroyed Hinamizawa in a single night? Where was Hinamizawa village anyway? Cat. Someplace deep in the mountains, right? Names of places I'd heard about on the radio were always like that. They were all places I'd never heard of, much less know the locations of. Wiped out? What does that mean? Don't they usually say how many died and how many were injured? How many people were alive? Where did everyone evacuate to? Eventually we came into view of Coach's clinic. For the first time, I saw the flag of Japan hanging on a pole outside. Japan's circular sun hung down as though exhausted. Many SDF tents were set up in the clinic's big parking lot, and many strict security vehicles were parked there as well. When they saw the jeep coming, men in white clothing and gas masks came running out of the clinic, frantic, carrying a stretcher. You're going to be all right. How do you feel? Can you walk? Yes. Ow. Ow. And because of my ows, they forced me to lay in the stretcher anyway. People who seemed like doctors were looking at me and notifying others of my condition via radio. Multiple wounds. High possibility of fractures and internal damage. Large laceration in the head. Pupils normal, but even without bleeding from the fundus, brain damage is still possible. And then, from the clinic entrance, people lying on stretchers brought outside to replace me. Judging by their clothing, they were from Hinamizawa, and that's how I knew they were victims. They brought the stretchers in front of a truck. 2 troops holding shoulders and legs, like some kind of baggage, picked them up and threw them into the trunk. What? In the trunk of the truck, people's bodies piled in heaps. They were just like baggage. That told me they were already nothing but shells. At that moment, I remembered all those colorful sacks filling the trunks, and them lined up in the schoolyard like a fish market. Hundreds of empty shells. Corpses. 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 You jackasses! Don't just throw the victims in like that. They lived here. The troops carrying the sacks answered me with a humble salute. The world didn't need this insane version of Hinamizawa. My final wish. Again, it was granted. I didn't understand anything anymore. None of it mattered. I wished, I cursed, and that happened the next day. Then please, tomorrow morning, let me die. That insane night is still going on. Please, let it end already. Yeah? Hey, he's lost consciousness. Shout his name, quickly. My Barkun, can you hear me? Got a cat on the shoulder. If you can hear me, just blink. My Barkun! My Barkun! My Barkun! Suddenly, the world didn't matter to me anymore. I wasn't interested in their cries. His breathing stopped. Get his respiratory tract open. Use CPR. Make him live. Damn it. Damn it. No more. No more dead people. Nobody deserves to die. Don't kill him. Don't kill him! I could hear the voice of a man crying and screaming in my ears. Nobody deserves to die. Those words came from my heart. They were so commonplace, and they soaked into my heart too. Maybe it was a mistake to take someone's life, even if it was to save Satoko. If this is the price I had to pay, this horrible tragedy, then this is a little too much, Oyashiro-sama. Why did you never punish me? Come to think of it, Satoko said something. Oyashiro-sama's actual curse never goes for the target at first, but kills everyone they loved before that. Oyashiro-sama's curse. It was a convenient excuse I told myself at the very end. That it wasn't my curse that destroyed it, but Oyashiro-sama's. Given that I was in a stretcher, this next bit might have been obvious. But last of all, I realized one thing. Yeah. Today, I had not heard those footsteps following me, even once. And now I was liberated. As the cries of the Higurashi I couldn't have been hearing filled my mind. Their tearful ensemble was the only funeral march I had. June 22nd, 1983, early morning. A widespread disaster occurred in Hinamizawa Village, Shishibone Prefecture. Volcanic gas, carbon dioxide, and hydrogen sulfide erupted from Onigufuchi Swamp, one of the Hinamizawa area's water sources, and spread through the entire village. There were 1,200 victims, 20 missing. The catastrophe was unprecedented, forcing local governments to evacuate approximately 600,000 people. According to later investigations, magma pools and hot springs were uncovered directly under Onigufuchi Swamp, and the gas that gushed from it was determined to be the cause of the disaster. In addition, directly after the incident broke out, many came forth claiming that the disaster was a curse based in the Hinamizawa village legends, first sparking a wave of chaos. There were apparently local legends of a curse spreading a miasma, destroying the village, and some scholars believe a similar gas disaster may have happened in the past and remained part of local legends. More extreme periodicals suggested this was an extension of the string of freak deaths incidents that have been happening in recent years in Higurashi village, stirring interesting theories about the curse of Oyasho-sama. In addition, relatives of those in there escaped the disaster complained of sickness afterwards and were hospitalized. Some of them died of unknown causes, causing further complications. On top of that, several relatives professing to be possessed by his curse committed suicide in strange ways, and the impact the disaster has had on the entire nation can no longer be ignored. Wild visions of terrible toxic gas sneaking around in the middle of the night killing people spilled across the country, causing a steady stream of people complaining of insomnia, difficulty breathing, headache, dizziness, etc. Some of whom identified themselves as being obsessed by it began doing odd things. Most of these were mistakenly attributed by the tabloid press, but afterwards some even began to call the mental issues arising from the Hinamizawa tragedy the Hinamizawa syndrome. The Hinamizawa village region, the object of all kinds of rumors and speculation, is currently closed off, and even flying overhead is prohibited. The prohibition was at one point undone as a result of a decrease in the gas's density, but that autumn another gas burst was confirmed, leading to the area being cordoned off again. Word is that the area is sound asleep, all traces of its former life left to rot. Yeah. Okay, I can do this. Good. It's not still typing, right? Okay, it is. There we go. Ooh. Now I can read again. Former life intact and left to rot. Only one villager remains, Keiichi Maibara, age 10-something, who lived at Hinamizawa village. At the time of rescue, he had some trouble breathing due to fluid buildup in his lungs, but as a result of life-saving procedures, he was kept alive. He is currently in a general hospital somewhere in the prefecture. The press has been asking for him for some time, but all interviews are being refused. What did he see in Hinamizawa? What happened between 21st and 22nd? Today he remained silent, unwilling to speak of it. Oh, I wish I could read that. Oh wow, this is actually a death thing. Can I actually... Like, these look like words that can almost be read. Takano was strangled to death. Oishi went missing. Katsuya Kumatani went missing. Irie committed suicide. Rika killed. And then everyone else died in the Great Disaster. Looks like just a different language altogether, so... Did she went missing? I saw I missed that. Well, I mean, she did leave the bridge and went into the woods. And it's like, Rika's obviously dead, so she wouldn't see her. I don't know who else was missing, but it's like he was the last one who saw her that entire day. And like, who else would have seen her otherwise? Rika and him. And since both of them were gone, I suppose they could have investigated in the mountains and whatnot to see if there were more people missing, but it's not. Looks like it was sort of backwards or something, maybe. It was tough to read while it was scrolling with everything else. Oh, 2003. Yeah, I did see a bit of English, but in the first bit. Well, this might be Satoko then. An elderly couple living in Osaka Prefecture, this was 20 years later, discovered a cassette tape while organizing the possessions of their son, who passed away 8 years ago. Their son went missing when his fishing boat capsized in 1995. He was 47 at the time of his death. 8 years later, in 2003, they had begun to organize their son's remains in order to organize their minds, and came across the cassette tape in question. From 1975 to 1989, the deceased had experience working as a journalist for a photography periodical, and this tape is thought to have been created during that time. Well, 83 is the year of the incident. The label on the tape read 11/28/1983, Keiichi Maibara. So that's 5 months after the incident. It is thought the tape was recorded during an interview with Keiichi Maibara, the only survivor of the Great Hinamizawa disaster that occurred in June. As the only person who lived through the disaster on the night of 21, shrouded in mystery, many interested parties attempted to question him, but he never once spoke physically to anyone in a public place. Therefore, the tape caused quite a stir, possibly being of extremely high value. It's really hard to talk about stuff when I know I'm being recorded. Please, don't worry about it. Here, it won't be a problem if I do this, right? After this, the sound quality dramatically decreases. Did he cover the recording device with something? Let's get started. Here's my first question. Keiichi-kun, where were you the night of the great disaster? I had gone behind the shrine, then took a path through the woods for a while. There's a rope bridge there, a little while before you get into the mountains. I fell from there and lost consciousness. Did this happen during the night of the disaster, between the 21st and the 22nd? No. It was the morning of the 21st, on Tuesday, which means I woke up the afternoon of the next day. I think I was out for a day and a half. Why on earth were you there? I mean, I'm sure everyone wants to know, but the bridge you fell from that day, a weekday I might add, was quite far from both your house and the school, wasn't it? Speaking frankly, there are some who say you knew of the great disaster beforehand and fell from the rope bridge as you were trying to flee the village. This isn't a joke. Please don't be so arbitrary about this. I think it's a terrible thing to say, too. Please don't be offended. Anyway, about the rope bridge you fell from. It was right here on the map, right? The rope bridge behind the back of the shrine and through the path in the woods. Probably. I never went over there, so I can't say for sure. I guess I just want to know why you were out somewhere you'd never been before on a weekday morning. And then, well, about the riverbed you fell unconscious on. Have you heard the rumors about that being impossible? Impossible. That word. Again. 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 For a little while, Keiichi Maibara mutters the word impossible several times. Why would it be impossible? You know how the volcanic gas originated in the Onigufuji swamp? Some scholars did some pretty delicate simulations and modeling and discovered something very interesting. The volcanic gas was heavier than the air, so it went along the ground, flowing into lower and lower places, kind of like what water does. And with the Onigufuji swamp as a source, they were able to test how much time it would take for the gas to erupt and spread across the whole village. So, well, that riverbed you were unconscious on, the gas, it would have flowed down there. I don't really understand what you're getting at. In other words, if you were really passed out on that riverbed, you would have been in the middle of all that toxic gas that was spreading everywhere that night. That means there was no chance you could have passed out there. Allow me to be a little more frank. I think that maybe you might be telling a lie. During the great disaster, you were hiding in a safe place, keeping an eye out for when the gas got thinner, then reappeared and were secured by the STF. How about that? Is that right on the mark? For a short time, the journalist presses Keiichi Maibara further, in a teasing way, but all that can be heard are heavy sighs. Even if that was the case, I wouldn't be surprised at this point. What do you mean you wouldn't be surprised? Was this recording really taken of him? Some harbor suspicions. You said it before, didn't you? That was impossible. Impossible things happen in that Hinamizawa all the time. There are people who shouldn't exist. Dead people end up alive. It's not really that unusual. Never thought I, of all people, would be asked to prove that I was still alive when I was supposed to have died. The journalist and Keiichi Maibara both laughed for a while. To verify its authenticity with his voice. However, the sound was not clear. Much time has passed, so the relatives couldn't remember what he sounded like. I was unable to gain positive proof it was actually his voice. Alright then, I'll change the subject. What do you think of the debate about whether this disaster was the curse, the 5th year of the serial freak death incidents in Hinamizawa? I don't think it was. I was the curse that year, after all. Hmm? What do you mean? I was just answering the question. Doubts also remain regarding the date 11/28 written on the tape. Curse, well, you probably won't believe me when I tell you this. I was the one who caused it. I was the one who wished for the whole village to die, and it happened. What an exciting story. Exciting. I suppose you can call it that. After his failed suicide attempt on a certain August day 2 months after the disaster, he was diagnosed with a mental disorder and transported to a treatment facility. I was the one who killed Takano-san, and Coach, and Oishi too. At the time, it had some kind of divine power. Yes, I suppose it was like footsteps. Footsteps? Wait, what's that supposed to mean? Have you never heard footsteps before? Tip tap, click click, click click click. The facility never allowed any news coverage, so it's extremely unlikely that a tape dated a media dated after August 1983 would have had his voice on it. Today, when you're walking around, try stopping suddenly. Something interesting will happen. Anyway, if you hear an extra footstep, even though you'd already stopped walking, you'd better be careful, you know. Yes, I'll be careful. Is what I'm saying. Really that funny to you? However, the reporter had been criticized for his forceful methods of collecting data while he was still active. So there still is a possibility that he broke into the facility and forced Keiichi to talk. You've been doing nothing but laugh in my face this whole time. You're just like Coach. You pretend to sympathize with me, to listen to what I have to say, but your eyes are telling me you think I'm a lunatic. That's not true. No, I can tell. Your eyes are the same as Coach's. Is this truly Keiichi Maibara's voice? The authenticity of this recording is still wrapped in mystery. I never heard the footsteps again after that day, so I don't think I have that terrible power anymore. Perhaps right here, right now, I'll wish for you to die. I'll wish for your death, for saying all these unpleasant things. Yes, this time, why don't I decide how you die? Takuma-san was burned to death, so... Let's go with the opposite, with water. I hope you drown and die. How's that? 15 years after this tape was created, the reporter, just as Keiichi Maibara had predicted, died in an accident out on the sea. If I'm in top form like I was then, you'd die before tomorrow morning for sure. Now then, I wonder how many days it will take you to drown. You better be careful, you know. Don't go getting yourself killed by some stupid curse I put on you, okay? Ha 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 ha. The recording ends in the middle of Keiichi Maibara's laughter. And Keiichi Maibara. Late on the night of 11/30/1983, 2 days after the interview, he suddenly died from high fever. Cause unknown. Records remain of the strange words he kept giving after pressing the call button the day before he died. An extra set of footsteps. Is it slowly fading out? It's like those credits went way... That laughter every chapter. Those credits at that epilogue went by way too quick compared to, like, the fading of those words. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I've heard that laughter after every chapter, but all cast review session. That's where they start talking about everything. They're gonna be like, wow, that was weird. I'm gonna check what she's barking at. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that played. Maybe it was at the start of this chapter. And it's supposed to be like Satoko's laughter. Have different sort of atmosphere than the previous chapters. Bad end again, the type which we're so fond of, huh? Personally, I wanted to get a scene of the Gats coming in, the villagers spasming and foaming at the mouth, one by one before. Boing! Of course I do not think so. Again. It happened again. A huge bad end. Yeah, I don't think you'd have to play if you watch videos. It's not much of a difference, since there's no real gameplay. Huh? Michan, you sure seem happy about the bad end. Well, it's more like all we can honestly do at this point is laugh. Yep, the game and the anime are split into 4 and 4. Question arcs and answer arcs. This one gives a lot more questions, but it also gives you a good hint, which I won't spoil, of course. The terrible endings have been escalating through each chapter, and it finally reached culmination, I suppose. Yeah, the sprites in this are even better than the anime, sadly. Everyone died together as friends. As friends, nipa? I guess you could say that. I die every time, though, and I'm a little tired of it. It's another hint, sort of. It would be nice to have an ending where I didn't die once in a while. Tomitaka-san, you're kind of like a news reporter. When you die, it's like, oh, we're in the second half now. Kind of. Wahahaha! Oh, music changed. Here are all the new character portraits that debuted in this chapter. Everyone give a big round of applause. Aria Kyosuke-san. I'm honored to have your introduction. Hello there. I was a minor character, but having a full portrait like this makes it really feel really important. It's true. You had too many appearances and too much dialogue to be a minor character this time. I don't know if I'll appear in the next scenario, so please root for me. He's considered minor, but he's pretty big throughout the series, I feel. It's just in the previous ones he wasn't as big. Thank you very much. Next up we have Chie-sensei, who's been around forever but never had a portrait until now. Hello everyone. They have had me appear in school scenes ever since the first chapter, but for whatever reason I didn't have my own portrait. I wonder why. Yes, I wonder. Oh, someone give Chie-sensei a seat, please. Okay, now everybody is here. Rena, you can do the honors again. Okay, everyone. Please pick up the cup nearest to you on your table. There are plenty of different drinks. These after parties have really gotten lively. How many do we have here now? Including us, I think there are about 10 people. Keiichi still doesn't have a model. Now we finally have the same number of minors and adults. We can all drink without being ashamed. Speaking of beer, how is that something so delicious when cold turns so bad when warm? One of the 7 wonders of the world, I say. There it is. Just give it a few seconds and I'll still let it go. Nope. I can see lots of frames dropping already. Yeah, but the bitrate's terrible, so it'll probably be, what's it called? Buffering a lot. Oh well. Anyway, let's get this moving to the more important part. Everyone's attention. Everyone. I get to the more important part. Traditional plot discussion. Still though, this chapter just confused us yet again. Well, if anyone has an opinion, please raise your hand. Wow, everyone's being so discreet. No hands? Then why don't I break the ice? Oh, excuse me. Could you change the music, please? Something a little more mysterious. Yeah, that's good. The mood has been set. Alright, Takano-san, take it away. I think that just by poring over the Higurashi story, the mystery won't be revealed. I know what you mean. Obviously, that's how the stories have been set up. Was there something like that in particular? I don't know if I'm right, but in Onikakushi, when Maibara-kun was eating in the restaurant with Oishi-san, Sonozaki-san found out, and it was a little mysterious, right? It was certainly mysterious just in Onikakushi, but after reading Watanagashi a few times, things made a lot of sense. When I mentioned a restaurant with cute uniforms during the story, it must have meant Angel Mort. And Angel Mort is owned by the Sonozaki family, so... Someone who knew Kei-chan was there too, and told me. It actually makes a good amount of sense, right? That's what we mean. There are subtle differences in the Higurashi stories, but I think there's 3 facets that are the same for each. The character settings, for example. I was scary in Onikakushi, but that wasn't only because it was Onikakushi. It was because my character was the exact same in all 3 stories. Is that it? I agree with the characters being exactly the same. The most extreme case being me dying in the same way in the same place every time. No matter which story it is, you always die on the same day. There's a scene where during Watanagashi, Takano-san and Tomitaki-san sneak into the ritual's implement storehouse. The same scene may have still happened in the other stories, even though it wasn't portrayed. I think it still happened, save for a few events, the weather the day of the festival, what we did in the club, and Satoko's uncle coming home. It's almost all the same. Which means we have a bunch more questions. If the stories are told in exactly the same environment each time, why do they end up so different? If we think in a general sound novels type of way, sometimes the story branches depending on choices, right? So like, if in Watanagashi you had given the doll to my sister? An unavoidable bad end from a choice so early on, that's pretty scary. Well, in Tatari Hiroshi, maybe whether you decide to kill the uncle or not. I think it was way before that. I think it branched back when the uncle's lover disappeared because of some trouble, and he returned to Hinamizawa. Then what was the first branch in Onikakushi? I think it was when I appeared and started talking about the serial freak death incidents related to Oyashio Osama's curse. Oh, this is definitely true for Onikakushi. It's one thing I'm going to write that down right now so I don't forget it. Wrote down the thing I want to talk about in the future. Okay. You know, I just thought of something. If Keiichi-san gave the doll to Mion-san, and if Oishi-san and my uncle hadn't appeared, would we not have spent our time in peace without anything happening? She's basically appeared in all of them. Just like Tomitake, she's probably around the same level as him. But she only got a sprite this time, I think? Or was no, the previous one, because she went to the shrine with him and Shion. I see. Satoko's gotten right to the point. You're right. You can say that again. Then maybe we should pray Oishi-san and her uncle don't show up in this dark story. And then if we can prevent Somazaki-san from getting in a bad mood, everyone will be happy? But then Arc 4 happens. Yay, big sis, you're needed for the bad ending. Be careful, everyone. If you make my sister mad, you're sure to get a bad end. What are you saying? Shion? Next time I'll pound nails into you without mercy. Bang, bang. Just you wait. We can't solve any of the mysteries thus far, but we seem to have put together a plan for how to get the story to end happily. I wonder if that would really make us happy. Yeah, you should never do that about these kinds of mystery games, because you probably just spoiled yourself in, like, the biggest mystery. Alright, hopefully it's coming back, but it's still terrible in frame droppings. Should we have everyone in the village put on gas masks and move away? It's probably Oyashiro-sama's curse, so we need to make sure not to make Oyashiro-sama angry. Nah, this is getting a little tricky. Let me just close the door again real quick. Dog's out of here. And what should we do in order to prevent that? Dam project itself is probably out of the question. Maybe if there was never a dam project in the first place? That would be hard. If it didn't happen, we would need a ritual to quell Oyashiro-sama's anger. Sinking a sacrifice into the Onifuji swamp. A ritual sacrifice. Sacrifice? Who do we sacrifice? The outsider. Come on, use your head. Someone who dies no matter what happens. If he's gonna die anyway, then we may as well have help out Hinamizawa. When you say dies no matter what, you're talking about me, aren't you? I knew all along. I knew you had some very important role in the story, Jiro-san. We'll get you to play your part. And with that, we have a blueprint for getting a nice, happy, good ending, don't we? Let's give it a try since we have time. Everyone involved, come over here. First, we stop Uncle Hojo, whose lover never ran out on him from returning to Hinamizawa. Hi, my name's Uncle Hojo. He has no portrait, so I'm standing in. I'm so lonely and blue because my lover ran away. Time to go back to Hinamizawa, lock up Satoko-chan, and raise her into a maidservant. Why don't I take my motorbike back? I'll just put in the key and click. Click? Oh no, the frames are back, that's why it's working better. Kaboom! Yeah, it looks like they're moving into jokes now. Judgment, to ashes and dust shall you return. Satoko-chan, don't you think this was a little too much gunpowder? I hope Coach is alright. Next, we stop Oishi from showing up. Me this time? My name is Kurado Oishi. A hot, good-looking middle-aged man who looks like a blues singer. It's actually so... Why'd you click? Kaboom. Me, judgment for you. And lest we forget, a follow-up service for my sister. Come here, big sis. There's a cute little doll for you. Aw, how nice. I'm not really understanding this. And finally, we must quell Shirasama's anger. Then, will our last actor please come up? Time fast, wrap him up, and hang him. He'll sink for 3 days, right? Not that patient, let's just get it over with. No, it would be neon exploding, right? Wink. And with that, the case has been closed. Yeah. Oh no, all of a sudden, this arm of mine is glowing with an awesome power. It wants me to defeat you. This pile of corpses is a pretty big deal. Now for Keiichi to appear again. Huh? It's the phone. Hello? Oh, Keiichi-kun? Thanks for all your work. Yeah, looks like you're all having a roaring old time. Yet here I am, busy with reading the scenario for the next story. Whatever. I'm in a good mood today, so I'll let you off without any teasing. Is she on there? Can you put her on? What? You're going to announce it here? I wanted to keep it secret for a little while longer, but okay. A secret between Shion-san and Keiichi-san? What do you mean? Nobody told me about this. Nobody. Pretty sure Keiichi's in every chapter. Because like they were talking about a bit earlier, it's like the characters are always the same. Okay, Kei-chan, let's say it at the same time. 1, 2, 3. The main character of the next story will be Shion. What? Yeah, so that's that. The one topping the popularity charts since her first appearance. The late appearing younger sister of twins has been the pattern of things ever since the days of TH. I have no idea what that means, and it doesn't matter. Anyway, I've been fired from my main character post for once. If the rumors are right, I might even get a portrait finally? Woohoo! Well, portraits of Kei-chan would be a big waste of disk space. If it couldn't all fit on one disc, there's a pretty high chance he'd be the first one dropped. Are you okay with this, Shion-san? The main character always meets with some terrible fate in the end. Well, until now. But that doesn't necessarily mean it'll happen next time. With the Tatarigoshi, we're already at the third game in Higurashi When They Cry series. The first half presented a lot of strange and exciting mysteries. Starting next time, the mysteries will start to be solved in the second half, marking the start of the investigation arc. Temporary name. That means it'll be a thrilling story where I become a detective and solve all those crazy, unfair mysteries. You'd all better think up good signature phrases, like, "You, sir, are the criminal." It won't happen. Never. You'll get too close to the three family secrets, be imprisoned, and then get tortured. You're a shoo-in to meet a violent, unnatural death. Sis, I should say the same to you. Are you mentally prepared for me to see through all your mysteries and secrets, then have you apologize to me and commit suicide? No chance of Oyashiro-sama's curse for me, is there? Anyway, the new story to begin the second half, temporarily called Akashi, or Eye-Opening, is currently undergoing diligent development. We should be able to unveil it to you all in the near future, so I hope you look forward to it. Onikakushi, Watanagashi, and Tatarigoshi. What truths will you all come up with after reading these three stories? Or will you just come up with more questions instead of theories? Ren has no clue either. For all you warriors who never yielded to these three mysteries and kept on fighting, We present you with one final scenario as thanks for your enthusiasm. One which we never originally planned on giving to you. Please enjoy it. I can't tell if this was past stuff or if it's actually current, because they're acting like the next chapter is what's supposedly chapter 5. Mm-hmm. I think that's it. Let me check my Steam, because I do have 2 of them installed. All these messages. Reconnection. Okay, that's it. So, check my Steam, my library, Higurashi's. Chapter 4. Yeah, there is another chapter, but it's not. Yeah, that's why I was talking about. They talk about the answer arcs, which starts with chapter 5, but there's one more chapter called Himatsubushi, which... Ooh, these are cool fan arts. Anyway. I'm going to check one thing that might make it a bit obvious. Yeah, and also chapter 4 only has 8 achievements, and is 3 and 5 in comparison have 16, so it's going to be a shorter one. Oh, I'm going to look up if I should play 4 right away or not, because that's a bit... I'll have to check that. But what I want to do besides that is Whoops. I don't want to do that. Just give me a moment. Is what it's actually next, or what? Or that's added in later. Anyway, I'm going to skip towards that credit scene and look a bit closer, or at least as close as I could. I'm going to save at it so I can actually go back to it. Yeah, that's what I figured, but... So it's like they were working on 5, and then they were like, wait a second, we should do something before that. Is what you mean? Because the anime definitely did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. A bit more. Alright, I have to remember Keiichi heard all this. Yeah, the anime did all 8. And a few more, even. Like I said, I'm gonna have to check at some point. Bit more about corpses. He wants to die. I'm gonna save here. And... save again here. Because I'm probably going to have to reload multiple times to read all the things I want. I'm only going to do it once on stream. Oh yeah, that bit. One more. Okay, here comes the credits. I think. No, it's this stuff. Can I skip through this? Oh, I can. Right. Come on. Oop! I skipped too much. I think. Because that was credits, and then it's this again, so yeah. I guess you can skip the credits? I just wish you could pause them. Just a sec. So we have this stuff. Pay attention. Now right click and see if I can save here. Yes, I can. Good. Just gonna click and not actually skip. Left to right. I remember there was like one more after this. And then it goes to the credits, I believe. He's kept alive and he's somewhere in a general hospital. That's where they end it. Yeah, that makes sense for chapter 4. Okay, yeah, it's still so quick I can't read anything too well. Yeah, it's like with the blah blah blah. It's hard to read the stuff popular. Anyway, I'm gonna pay attention for Rika, or not Rika. Grandmother Satoko went missing during the Himuzoa disaster. Oh, passed away in the Great Himuzoa disaster. And went missing during it. Okay, I think it's like... I wonder if her ally something. Did he just end up something? Like, I really wish I could pause this. I'll have to check. Partner in crime, you really did a good job this time. Let's put it out the best stuff. So yeah, all these are actually English, but they're spread out badly, so it's harder to read. And since it's so quick, a bit harder. Alright, I'm gonna skip this and see if I can, what's it called? Maybe there's like a plausible one. Otherwise, I could just look at my stream and read it slowly. That'd be smarter, like my VOD. Now I can't skip. Oh well, it's at the ending of it now. Yeah, the answer chapters sort of like give you really good hints to figure out the mystery. And then at the end, literally just tell you the answer. Okay, now we skip through this. A few seconds. Why am I even skipping this? I can just go back to the main menu and take a look at stuff. So let's see. Config, extra. Check the extras. We have tips, chapter, and all. Why did I click that? Too clicky. Yeah, I watched the anime, which I know the main answers. But the novels themselves give you a lot of good stuff as well. Did the game freeze? Oh, there it goes. But it's like some things I don't remember that well. Like this chapter I don't remember that well, honestly. I didn't like it that much, I'd say. Chapter jump. Epilogue 1, Epilogue 2. I assume Epilogue 1 is Keiichi waking up and Epilogue 2 is the fast forward thing, so I can't really look at it. I assume they sum it up very well, though, with like maybe like a 30-minute thing rather than the entire chapter, right? Like they play through it, summarize stuff, write stuff down, edit, all that stuff. Meanwhile, I just do like 2 to 3 hours a week, and it takes a while to finish a chapter as well. Oh wow, that's really in depth then. Alright, but that'll be the end for this week. And I'll be starting chapter 4 next week then, I assume. If I do 5 for some reason, I'll tell you then. Yeah, 4 was short, and the rest are all normal lengths. At least based on the achievements, so it's probably a half chapter compared to the rest. Which I think Steam they hire voice actors. That makes sense. Because otherwise you have just me reading in like 3 tones of voices maybe. I can't make crying voices or anything. Like I said, I held off on real vomit at least. But yeah, this chapter gives you a very good hint that sort of hides. And I wrote that down to talk about. Basically, when I hit chapter 8, I'll talk about all the stuff I don't talk about. Because the stuff is from a ending point of view rather than mid chapters. Yeah, because the visual novels do have a lot of stuff, and if you want to pay attention to a lot of stuff, it's important to. And like you said, they voice them out, so that means they read the important scenes out probably with voice acting. All right, I'm gonna end it here, and we'll continue more on Saturday since I don't have anything planned this Saturday this time. Yeah, I'd do both personally if you like the videos, but I enjoy the other, what's it called, the anime's voices, because I like Japanese voice acting for them. But I assume their videos are in English for that. Right. You have a good night, because I know you're probably almost bed. No, it's not quite bedtime, but you have a good night, Teaspoon. Bye bye.